Here is expansion 1 to 600 words, no heading, continuing the dramatized storyline you received. The air crackled with a tension that even the commercial break couldn't dissolve. Crew members swarmed the stage, adjusting microphones, retouching makeup, and whispering frantic instructions into earpieces. Yet, the center of the storm, Joy Behar, sat unusually still, her hands tightly folded, her eyes unfocused. It wasn't the clash with Daniel Hale that unsettled her, she had handled sharper debates. It was the unexpected arrival of Reverend Michael Donovan. For years, Joy had sparred on air with politicians, actors, activists, but Donovan wasn't part of the entertainment machine. He was someone whose words carried weight for reasons that had nothing to do with ratings. Meanwhile, backstage, Daniel Hale stood near the emergency exit door where a producer had gently, but firmly, asked him to wait for further instructions. Daniel's expression revealed no anger, only disappointment. He had expected a heated discussion. After all, The View was notorious for them, but not the level of chaos that Reverend Donovan's presence triggered. He rubbed the back of his neck, wondering if his attempt at bridging faith and entertainment had backfired. A young intern, clearly embarrassed, approached him. "Mr. Hale, I'm really sorry about all this. They're just trying to make sure the segment stays controlled." Daniel smiled softly. "It's fine, truly. This wasn't about me." But in truth, he sensed something deeper simmering beneath the surface. Donovan had not simply wandered into the studio. Someone had contacted him, or something had compelled him. Back on stage, the cameras rolled again. Whoopi Goldberg, ever the stabilizer, attempted humor to smooth over the awkward tension. "Well, that was a morning surprise I didn't see coming. I thought the biggest shock today would be whether my coffee had almond milk or whole milk." The audience chuckled. Joy forced a smile, but her mind was still racing. Sunny Hostin, always composed, took the reins. "Before the break, we had an unexpected guest speak to us about the importance of conversation and listening. And while this wasn't planned, it's a reminder of how passionate people can be about issues like faith, unity, and media influence." Joy shifted slightly, her throat tightening. She knew the next line in the script required her to offer commentary, but for once, the words didn't come automatically. She cleared her throat. "Well, I think it's important to remember that this is a show about opinions. We debate. That's what we do. I wasn't trying to shut anyone down." Whoopi raised an eyebrow, subtly, but noticeably. The viewers at home picked up on it immediately. Sunny continued, "But dismissing someone's intention can sometimes escalate things." Joy exhaled slowly. "Look, I question everyone. That's my job. But I admit, I didn't expect him to walk in." A producer backstage nearly applauded. Any acknowledgement from Joy was progress. But then, in a twist no one anticipated, the studio doors opened again. Reverend Donovan calmly re-entered the room, not barging in, not demanding attention, but walking with the quiet energy of someone who believed he still had something important to say. Even the audience held their breath. "Before I leave," Donovan began, "I want to clarify something." The hosts froze. "I didn't come to defend religion," he said. "I came because conversations like this, ones that cross lines of belief, identity, and background, are exactly what our society is lacking. Daniel may represent faith to some, but what he truly represents today is the voice of a person trying to be heard without being caricatured." Joy swallowed, hard. "And Joy," he added, turning to her gently, "you challenge people. That's valuable. But remember that challenging without curiosity becomes confrontation." The audience murmured softly, struck by the truth of it. Donovan smiled warmly, nodded to the hosts, and exited with the same calm presence he'd entered with. For several seconds, the studio was silent. Then Whoopi muttered under her breath, audible enough for millions of viewers to hear. "Well, damn." Laughter erupted. The tension, at least momentarily, cracked. But the world outside the studio had already seized upon the moment. Clips were circulating, arguments erupting online, hashtags trending. And Daniel Hale, still waiting backstage, had no idea that his quiet interview had just ignited one of the most unexpected media storms of the year. Here's expansion 2 to 600 words, no heading, continuing the same dramatized storyline. While the studio scrambled to regain composure, word of the incident had already begun circulating through the control room. A junior producer, face pale and fingers trembling over her keyboard, watched as social media statistics surged in real time. Clips of Reverend Donovan entering the set were already going viral, uploaded by audience members who had instinctively recorded the moment. The show had planned for a light Friday segment. Instead, they had birthed a cultural flashpoint. Backstage, Daniel Hale was escorted to a small private room. It wasn't luxurious, just a couch, a small table, a mirror, and a few leftover makeup wipes, but it was quieter than the hallway swarming with confused staff. He sat down heavily, then leaned forward, elbows on his knees. His mind replayed the last 10 minutes over and over. He had expected tension, maybe even laughter at his expense. But the sudden spotlight, Reverend Donovan stepping in front of millions, made the moment feel larger than anything he had intended. A knock sounded at the door. It wasn't security or a producer. It was Whoopi. She slipped inside, closing the door behind her. Her expression was gentle but firm. "You okay?" Daniel nodded slowly. "I didn't mean for any of that to happen. I just wanted a conversation." Whoopi gave a half smile. "Welcome to daytime TV. We planned for oatmeal and end up with fireworks." He chuckled, but the heaviness stayed in his eyes. "You didn't do anything wrong," she added. Joy gets heated. It's her style. And Donovan, well, he walks in here like Moses parting the Red Sea. No one's prepared for that. Daniel's smile widened a little, but he remained uneasy. "Are they mad at me?" "Some might be," Whoopi admitted, shrugging lightly. "But that's not what matters. What matters is whether you said what you meant to say." Daniel looked down at his hands. "I said my truth. But I didn't want it to become a spectacle. It became one anyway," Whoopi said softly. "And that's not on you." Before he could respond, another voice entered the doorway, Joy Behar's. She lingered awkwardly near the threshold. For once, the sharp, comedic confidence she carried like armor was nowhere to be found. "Can I come in?" Daniel nodded, though Whoopi looked uncertain. Joy stepped forward, twisting her glasses in her hand, a nervous habit she tried to hide on camera. "Look," she began, "I know things got out of hand." Daniel stayed quiet, letting her continue. Joy exhaled deeply. "I push people. Sometimes too hard. I know that. And today, well, let's just say I wasn't expecting a spiritual intervention." Daniel managed a soft laugh, easing the tension. Joy's expression softened. "I wasn't trying to attack you. But when people talk about faith on air, the conversation usually goes someplace ugly. I guess I reacted before listening." Daniel leaned back, considering her words. "Joy, you challenge people because you want clarity. I respect that. But sometimes clarity comes from listening, not pressing." Joy bit her lip, nodding. It was the closest she'd come to admitting fault on or off camera. Whoopi, satisfied that the olive branch had been extended, gave a small clap. "Good. Great. Wonderful. If I stay any longer, I'll end up refereeing again." She slipped out of the room. Joy looked at Daniel earnestly. "You know they're probably going to cut the rest of your segment." "I figured," Daniel replied. "But," she hesitated, "if you ever want to come back for a calmer conversation, I'd be open to it." Daniel raised an eyebrow. "Even after all this?" "Especially after all this," Joy said. "Besides, you handled yourself well. Not everyone does when I get going." He smiled. "Then maybe next time we start with listening instead of sparring." She laughed quietly. "Deal." As Joy left the room, Daniel realized something had shifted, not just in the studio, not just online, but in the way people would view him from now on. He hadn't asked for the drama, but he had stepped into it with grace. And in doing so, he had turned a simple interview into a moment people across the country couldn't stop talking about. The day wasn't over. But the storm had changed direction. Here is expansion 3 to 600 words, no heading, continuing the dramatized storyline. As Daniel waited for instructions from the producers, the studio outside erupted into its own form of chaos. Staff rushed through the hallways carrying clipboards, adjusting schedules, and whispering fiercely into headsets as they tried to make sense of the morning's unexpected detour. The show's executive producer, Linda Carver, was at the center of the storm, her voice sharp and clipped as she tried to manage the fallout. "Cut the next guest segment to 5 minutes, she barked into her mic. "And someone get the PR team up here. This is going to blow up whether we want it to or not." Inside the green room, Daniel rubbed his temples, feeling the emotional residue of the confrontation. He had done countless interviews, but none had spiraled into such unpredictability. He wasn't angry, just shaken, confused about how something meant to be heartfelt had turned into national theater. The presence of Reverend Donovan still felt surreal, like a scene from a film rather than a live broadcast. The door opened quietly, and a familiar figure stepped inside. Reverend Donovan himself. Daniel stood up immediately. "Reverend, I didn't know you were still here." "I'm leaving now," Donovan said with a warm smile. "But I wanted to check on you before I go." Daniel shook his head. I don't even know what to say. You walked in and everything changed. I hope I didn't cause you any trouble." The Reverend chuckled softly. "My boy, I'm too old to worry about trouble. I came because I believed the moment needed a voice that wasn't playing for the cameras. You were being misunderstood. I simply leveled the field." Daniel sighed. "But now it's going to look like a stunt. Like I asked you to come." Donovan placed a gentle hand on Daniel's shoulder. "People who want the truth will see it. People who want drama will build their own story. You can't live for either group. Just live for the truth you carry." Those words settled into Daniel like warm light. He nodded slowly. "Thank you." Before Donovan could reply, Linda Carver appeared in the doorway, breathing hard from moving so quickly. "Reverend Donovan, thank you for stepping in earlier. But for now, we need to let Daniel finish backstage paperwork and—" Donovan raised a hand politely. "I understand. I'm just leaving." With a kind nod to both of them, he slipped out of the room. Linda turned to Daniel with a tight but sympathetic expression. "Okay. Look, we didn't plan for this, and corporate is already calling. We have to frame this carefully. The official line is that the segment ended early due to timing adjustments." Daniel smiled faintly. "I expected as much. I know you're probably frustrated," Linda added, softening, "but I want to say this, you handled yourself better than most guests would have. You stayed calm. You stayed respectful. That matters." Daniel absorbed her words in silence. They meant more than she realized. "Your car will be ready in a few minutes," she continued. "But before you go, Joy asked if you'd be willing to record a short off-air conversation with her. Nothing formal, more of a mutual clarification. It could help calm things down." Daniel didn't hesitate. "Yes, I'd like that." Minutes later, he and Joy stood in a small recording booth. The camera was small, intimate, nothing like the glaring studio lights. Joy took a deep breath before starting. "I want to say this clearly," she began. "Daniel and I had a heated conversation today. But heated doesn't mean hateful. I challenged him, and he challenged me. And that's okay." Daniel added gently, "We may come from different perspectives, Joy, but I respect your passion. I hope this is the beginning of more understanding, not division." Joy nodded, her expression sincere. "Same here." The recording ended, and the two shared a brief, genuine handshake before parting ways. As Daniel walked out of the studio into the fresh afternoon air, he felt an unexpected calm settle over him. Today had been messy, unpredictable, and emotionally draining, but it had also been honest. The world would talk, speculate, argue. But he knew who he was. And somehow, he sensed that this strange morning wasn't the end of something, it was the beginning.